Hey everybody, how's it going? MisterPaskill here. You might be noticing down there it says Tembo the Badass Elephant New Review. Well, that is basically because I'm redoing the Tembo review. I feel like I rushed it a bit too fast. And for anyone who has seen the Tembo review, I'm not changing my score. But for people who haven't seen it, here is something. Hopefully you'll like it. If you do, like, favorite, and subscribe. And to the people who have subscribed and who do watch my channel, I want to apologize if you didn't find anything useful in the review. I'm not going to be rushing anything. Obviously, I'm not the most consistent with my content, but when I do put something out, I like to put something out that even I can watch and say, you know what, that was decently done. And unfortunately, I did not feel that way about my Tembo review a few days after putting it out. So I'm just going to stop talking right now, and here's the review. Game Freak rarely strays from producing the Pokemon series, but when they do, it takes the form in games like Drill Dozer, Harmonite, Solitiba, and now a new downloadable title called Tembo the Badass Elephant. Horrendous title aside, Tembo is the story of the titular pachyderm being called back into action by a former comrade to fight Phantom, a faction of evildoers hellbent on causing destruction. Immediately, the humour and tone of ridiculousness is set as you encounter allying military soldiers sporting various peanut-shaped symbols, various visual sight gags and audio cues that are clever touches on a game that already has enough charm to spare. From a gameplay perspective, to put it simply, Tembo is a game that draws inspiration from other platformers like Sonic, but doesn't really set out to do anything creative, or learn from the shortcomings that games it feels similar to suffer from. The level design can range from long pathways with obstacles to crash through or traverse over, to confined spaces filled with light puzzles that you must maneuver around slowly, and the change in pace with different levels would be more welcome if the controls were tight enough to accommodate for such a change. Tembo's main attack is a charge forward, and coupled with his aerial dash downwards, these attacks can backfire on you in confined spaces. You can either overshot your charge or be unable to stop yourself rolling after a dash, and end up destroying either your only way to progress or your ability to reach certain civilians and enemies, forcing you to backtrack through a death or restart, which also causes a loss of one life, which make it an incredibly frustrating experience when the controls simply don't complement the level design all that well. With the completion screen after each level comes the tally of civilians you've rescued and enemies you've vanquished. But don't be surprised that you may have to replay levels as there are hidden pockets of enemies to crush and innocent people to save, which again can be frustrating when there are indeed sections you cannot backtrack through without dying and restarting a level at the checkpoint, or flat out restarting a level. At the end of each world comes a boss battle, two of which are incredibly underwhelming. Neither boss is particularly challenging, nor are the fights anyway fun. Instead of using a new concept or trying to break up the pace of the battles, you're pitted in a one-on-one with very little deviation from other enemies you've already faced, coupled with a rinse and repeat process to defeat these so-called superior foes. On a more positive note, Tembo certainly earns its merits for solid visuals and a boisterous soundtrack. The art style is reminiscent of late 80s to early 90s manga, combined with cel-shaded 3D rendered environments and animated 2D sprites, which look sharp enough to look like its own modern Cartoon Network show. The soundtrack is a mix of action themes mixed with brass heavy orchestral pieces to deliver a large, almost elephantine level of charisma to the events on screen. Overall, Tembo the Badass Elephant is a moderately enjoyable platformer that tries a lot of old concepts in a modern looking game. There is an undeniably endearing charm to it all, but the gameplay just doesn't back it up in a way that it needs to stand out among other downloadable platformers. If you're someone looking for a retro style platformer, knock yourself out. I give Tembo the Badass Elephant a 3 out of 5.